Echo Lima 87. This is 100 watts and a wire.
Brothers and sisters, it is Christian. I've come to call. My amateur radio call sign is Kilo Zero Sierra Tango Hotel K0 STH. In the studio today, Sarasota, Florida, where the weather is quite nice. Expected to get to 90 degrees today. This morning when I woke up, we were about 71 degrees, and we stay in that area, or we have stayed in that area for a couple weeks now. A little bit of rain this morning. Things are going pretty well. We haven't talked in a couple of weeks, if not a little bit longer, and I wanted to touch base with you. Last time we connected, Hurricane Idalia was coming through. I was making preparations, and I must say, it was a great dress rehearsal. A great dress rehearsal. And I say that because we didn't know if this thing was going to turn and when they thought it would. But this was coming right up the pocket. And when I say turn, in this case, it was coming up from the Gulf. Being in Sarasota on the west side of Florida, we were in line for a minute, and then it started to trend a bit to the north, Tampa, and a bit north of that. So by the time it came through and passed, it was a tropical storm, and you can't sleep on a tropical storm. My neighbor taught me this. And she said, "See, child, look over there." She's 81. She's very much down with the street names. "See, child, look over there, you see. That oak tree that came down in a tropical storm. Took it over. Roots are sticking up, pointed toward the sky today. The neighborhood kids will often play on this oak tree. The lot has been sold in recent times, and who knows what will happen to that old oak tree, but it has given hours, if not days or weeks of fun to the neighbors who have little kids who want to play on this. It's not dangerous. The point being, high winds took down an oak in a tropical storm. Don't sleep on them, friends. Now, my family and I had been preparing, and I've mentioned on the show before, I thought we were a little bit behind in our preparation. We had moved here, had prepped a different way in Missouri than we do here, only because the known risks there, you have them. You have tornadoes. You're above the, the fault there under the earth. You've got an airport. You've got the river system. You've got the highway system. You've got crime. A lot of potentials there. Here, you're going to prepare for at least a power outage. But hurricanes do come this way, and you have to prepare for that because it is an eventuality. It's going to happen. And I thought after the move, I don't know if we're prepared. I really was like, I needed to dive back into the book of specifics. Looking at hurricanes, ready.gov is a good source of information. There's several books. But we wanted to have power. We wanted to have water. We wanted to have an escape plan if we needed to get up out of here. And what would that be exactly? So this was a great dress rehearsal. You may hear a radio behind me. It's on. You may hear the fan of the amplifier, and I can talk about that in a little bit. But essentially, I want to give that to you real quick to tell you that I was having some issues with the 7610. My radio is software defined, and it got glitchy over the weekend. And so I'm monitoring it, so you may hear some crackle and hum. Not the record by U2, rattle and hum. This is crackle and hum. This song would suck. That said, it's been the soundtrack of many naps when I've fallen asleep in this chair. Can I get a witness? We'll back that down. Anyway, so this hurricane preparation was a great dress rehearsal. The fact that it came through and passed, it brought high winds and rain. I put some videos on my TikTok channel thing. I mean, heavy rains for a long time. It was enough to impale a boat that's nearby on the waterfront. It was enough to cause enough tree damage. Lucky for us in this area, unlucky for others to the north. This became downgraded as it passed us by. I learned a lot, though. Can't say that we've experienced a hurricane here in Florida, but we prepared for one, and there's a few things that I'll do differently. I want to make sure that we have, enough batteries. I've got some lithium phosphate batteries, and they're from Bio Power, and it's a good time to let you know that they are a sponsor of this podcast. You should check them out. They offer the best lithium phosphate batteries for your ham radios, and in situations like I had here as the hurricane was going and coming. Visit bionopower.com. That's BIOENNO power.com. I have several batteries here. I wanted to charge everything up. I was doing all the things that you would do in preparation and waiting. That said, my radio communications, they came down, I think probably 2 days before, and possibly much to the dismay of at least one club member, maybe two. I don't know, man. Because I took my shiz down. I took it down. Number one, this is my first time. Right? And I don't think anybody was upset. There were multiple nets that happened through the Aries Club here. SRQ Aries. SRQ is the abbreviation they use at the airport. So SRQ Aries, basically SRQ meaning Syracuse. Sarasota even, Syracuse. Although it's a lovely area. Most of that, of which I said, was true. SRQ Sarasota. Cleaned it up. I'm not going to edit. Deal with it. But I wasn't able to check into all of the daily nets. In fact, I lost power for 23 and a half hours. And that had something to do with the storm. But moreover, the wind was swaying trees. And we've got a canopy of trees along this neighborhood that ride awfully close to power lines. 23 and a half hours without. We were prepared to go longer. It was enough. It was hot and uncomfortable. But I took my antennas down, and I don't feel bad for that. I brought the coax up. I don't know what to expect. I don't know what that wind would do. I used 213. It's little more than $1 a foot now. I'm not trying to repurchase this because I decided to be cavalier. Took it down. Took down the 2-meter 440 rig. And I was on an HT, and checking in was a little bit difficult. Some of my ham radio brethren, they'd say, let's take it down. Let's just bring it down lower. I took it down, pulled up the coax, and I look at the whole situation here in Sarasota as temporary. We're living here. Could be 1, 2 years, 5 years. I don't know about that part, but I'm in a rental. My situation is pretty stealthy. I'm being cautious with my antenna systems. 2-meter 440 is hopping, so I'm about 20 feet in the air there with that antenna. It does well. About 30 feet on my HF antenna, and that's it depends on the time of day. I've got a 20 and a 40 meter off-center fed dipole up. I brought it all down, pulled it out, the switcher, all of it, everything. I took the window pass-through out of the window. to shut the window up even stronger. It's good now, but, I don't know what we were dealing with, man. I pulled it all out of the field. And so it took some time to get back on the air. It didn't take very long, but there was some cleanup to do, tree debris and all this sort of stuff. And you've got your neighbors trying to make sure everybody else is cool. One neighbor was really upset because when they came through here, the power company had like a tree service come through and clear the pathway. Meaning, you guys get those trees out of the way. Let's identify the problem. You guys hack up these trees. And they did a number on these trees, you guys. They drop it down in the street. And most people don't say much because, look, power is important. Middle of summer, hot. People want power. They want lights. But there are some neighbors who are not happy about the numbers done on the trees, and that's a different rant for maybe the Christian Kudnick show. Talk about that another time. A great learning experience for me. I felt like I was doing some remote out in the field setups. I mean, when you're taking down, putting it back out, rolling back the coax, it's all good practice. May seem frustrating for those who are not in, say, a hurricane zone. But my friends who are interested in like winter field day in the summertime, working in the parks, working flora and fauna, you get it. You're setting up, you're breaking down. It's kind of part of the deal. And I didn't feel bad about it one iota. Now, I couldn't hear the hurricane net. When the big storm was coming through that night, you could hear it. I mean, things were hitting the roof. Winds were coming in strong. Boom. The power went out even before we fell asleep. Went all the way through to about 11:45 the following night. Interesting experience. I think we learned from it. I think we'll adapt our plan accordingly, but I don't feel bad about taking down the antennas. And the local Aries net, they went on the air. To their credit, they were up to about 4 times a day doing check-ins. They may have done it like at 8, 11, I don't know, 2, 8, something like that, rotation. And I checked in when I could. But the first situation for me was family first, making sure my young ones, 13 and 9, felt comfortable, not afraid, feeling safe as could be. Getting them to a position where they felt as normal as possible. Radio took back seat until I could get it back up, which was maybe a day or so after when the sun came back. But even on that day, boy, the water in the bay, really moving. So how are you doing? I hope you're doing well. I know you've noticed some irregularities in my situation. And my situation is pretty much the same here in Sarasota, meaning I'm going to give this show to you and make our checkpoints as often as I can. Some weeks we could be able to do more than one. Sometimes I need to pull back and deal with the situation at hand before me here in Sarasota. Some people have asked about the work situation. That's, the longer you stay in a place, you kind of build some connections, you make some connections. And I'm hopeful after a couple of interviews and a couple of rays of light, meeting different people and networking and, trying to get your thoughts together and where you are with the things. Because being the husband or the wife who's following the person getting a good job elsewhere, I think that may often take a little bit of time. Job market is very interesting right now. They say there's more people who need work than there's more jobs than people who are, right? There's more jobs than people applying for them for whatever reason. That might be a topic for the Christian Kudnick show in another location. I'm also reading that It's taking upwards of companies 45 days. 45 days for companies to get moving on their hires for whatever reason. I don't know. So the process is slow. We're making do. Thank you for those who do check in on me periodically. I do appreciate it. And when things stable out a bit more on that side, things will become a little more consistent on this side. But, I'm here for you. Drop me a line. You know where to find me. We are member supported. And if you find value in 100 Watts in a Wire, you can support the content and the community that you enjoy. Go to buymeacoffee.com. You're saying, what now, dude? What? Coffee? For me, this is better than Patreon. I'm sure Patreon has benefits. After a while, I left Patreon simply because they were taking upwards of 12% of your donations. I couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. So I found another source. Buy me a coffee. You can consider it pizza, beer, whatever you want to. buymeacoffee.com/radiocore. That's the name of my studio here. And give what you want. There's a membership there. One time, you could do it monthly. You could pay all at once if you like. But we appreciate you because you keep us on the air, as it were. I mentioned earlier an issue with the 7610. It's basically a computer. Software-defined radio is really a computer, and it had been quirking out on me over the weekend, and I'm thinking, what in the world? It was not showing signals. Sometimes it would. Then they would go to static, and I'd think, wow, did we get hit with a solar or something or other? What's going on? And then nothing. Nothing. F all nothing. I went through every connector. I went through every jumper. I went through every configuration, bypassed the amplifiers. I reinstalled the firmware. I hard reset the 7610, not once but twice, before this thing stabilized. And as of this recording, I can't say that we are out of the woods. I don't know. It's been holding all day. I've got it running behind me because I want to see it. I turned it off, turned it back on. It's there. But it had been really dicey over the weekend, and so much so I was like, oh no, man. Like, is this... It would just be another thing. And I thought, I brought my 7300 as a backup and field radio, so I wouldn't be completely ass out. I would have something. But looking at the 7610 and thinking, like, really, man? Like, I don't know what year I got this. I'm thinking 19. And I do the updates as they come out. They haven't had a new one since 21, I believe, and 1.3. And the idea of, like, losing it. And I had this discussion with Scotty and Steve one time when we were doing a live stream. Am I going to have to buy this again in 7 years? Like you do in computers, how they start to go. 4, 5, 6, 7 years, you're like, woo. And he was like, yeah. I'm thinking, I don't know about that. Man. This one cost me some ducats, and I don't know about that. Luckily, though, friends, it is stable. The 7610 is stable. I love this radio. I've not had any issues with it. Part of me thinks that there's some kind of inconsistency. It's my ignorance, not knowing much about electricity, voltage. I know I should know more. Ohm's law and all this. But there's something about the power distribution in this house that doesn't give me confidence. For instance, I need to have my amplifier on its own circuit. It needs to be somewhere away from where my radio and my lights are, because if I go to key up and I've got everything parked in one place, I'd blow it out. So it needs its own situation. And it took me a little bit to figure this out, here in Sarasota. It's okay. I did figure it out, but I'm kind of wondering, like with the power outages and people are shaking their head, no, I can hear your neck snap, 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 and crackle. Whatever it was like a reboot. Did you restart the computer? Restarted, hard reset twice, reinstalled the firmware once, checked all the cables, and it's finally holding up today. I'll keep you posted on our Discord server. A link for that is in the description of the podcast. You can also join us on Facebook. 15,000 plus people are there, friends. We'd love to have you. Another issue I've had since we last spoke was my Ameritron. That'd be a great name for, I don't know, a dancer somewhere. The Ameritron switcher. The 4 coax. I brought a 4 coax switcher from Ameritron. I like it. Something happened in my SWR on both radios went through the roof. Something went nutty in either the box or the receiver, the control. And I had to track that one down too, testing coax out there and testing this, what's going on with this. The culprit was the box itself. I'm not one of these guys that bash MFJ. I don't believe in it. They've got a lot of good products out there that are useful to me and to other hams. Other hams, though, may say their own piece, and that's fine. I like the Ameritron switchers, the coax switch, but for some reason something's up with this one, and I haven't been able to go back and test it, so I cut it. So now I'm running 2 antennas directly to the window pass-through. One is for 2 meter 440. The other is for my HF antenna, which is an off-center fed dipole for 40 meters and for 20 meters. And we've been consistent. But with this SWR issue, I've had trouble for the last 2 weeks getting into the 2 meter net. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I posted this just like when I started the Facebook group for 100 watts in a wire. I'm typing away like, what the F is... Back, space, spelled that wrong. And I'm saying, they can't hear me. They say I'm breaking squelch, and Ben, our friend Big Ben, he checked the SWR, and I thought, I hadn't even checked the SWR because I guess I thought the 2 meter 440 would just be solid, no problems. Coax was good. What's the problem? No problem there. I checked it. Woo, Lord, I broke squelch. Couldn't get in. I had no issues 6 weeks prior to this, but 2 weeks in a row, I finally get in and figure, But we corrected it. It was the Ameritron switcher. It's not an indictment on them either. I do like them, particularly these coax switchers. They've always served me well back in Missouri. And here, I don't know what this is. If it's, I don't know. I'm not going to speculate. But that's what's been going on here. We're charging up our batteries. We got our flashlights going. We've got headlamps and lanterns. We've got 2 HTs and a few Bio-Eno batteries, plus AA's and AAA's to try to keep things going because we are still in the thick of hurricane season here. We're still doing it. And that's where we are. We've been unscathed till now, but there's a couple things happening. There's a couple things out there in the Atlantic Ocean, so keep an eye out for what's happening, and I will do my best to touch base with you before each storm to talk about the preps, what I'm doing, breaking down, come on, and the situation. But thank you for hanging here today and always. Check out our community. We are community supported. If you dig the community, you dig the content, you're the reason I do it. You've always been helpful for me in advice, making the contacts. I'm happy to do the content and provide an atmosphere for the community. You can find us at 100wattsinawire.com. All right, good luck the rest of the way, my brothers and sisters. And by all means, if you can, please try and stay above the noise. 7-3.
To join the 100 Watts in a Wire community, visit 100wattsinawire.com.